In the last 2 years, I went from being the fat kid of the friend group who would get fat shamed literally every single day by my so called friends to now having lost over 17 pounds and completely transforming my life. And in this video, I'm going to give you the three exact habits that I started doing around that time that genuinely made fat loss so much easier and just let me finally start making progress. Because if you're anything like me, you've been trying to lose fat and wanted to for the past 3 months, 6 months, maybe even a couple of years now. And yet you just haven't made any progress. And I promise you, if you just do the three abs that I tell you in this video, you turn off your brain and just follow the blueprint I'm giving you, you will not only start making progress, but you will realize what an idiot you've been for so long. And that is the best feeling I wish I could give you. So there's three habits that I started doing around that time. And the first one that I'm going to show you is I stopped frying my brain every single morning. Let me just tell you exactly what my routine was for the entirety of COVID. I'd wake up at like 11 or 12 p.m. during lockdown, and without even brushing my teeth, while my eyes still had like that weird like shitty gunk like near them, I'd literally wake up, go over to the side of my bed where my iPad was charging, take it out, and just start scrolling for the entire morning. I wouldn't even brush my teeth, go shower, nothing. Waking up literally just meant I'd get my iPad out and just start doom scrolling for the entire morning. And the thing is, by around 2 or 3 p.m., maybe I'd load up some video games, maybe I'd get onto Discord and start playing with my friends, but at this point, I just felt so weirdly lethargic and almost unmotivated for no real reason. I was doing fun things like playing video games, eating junk food, maybe even going on the hub at this time, and yet I felt so unmotivated, almost semi-depressive, and I didn't know what to do about it. And so when my mom would walk into the room like at 4 p.m., 5 p.m., and yell at me to get off the game and start studying, I would never feel motivated to do any of it. And so I'd always have these like weird cycles of me wanting to do the good habits, me wanting to exercise and study and stop being a fat prick, and then just never staying consistent. And what's worse than being the fat kid and getting fat shamed every single day? It's wanting to do the good habits. It's trying to do them and failing over and over. And that was me for over 4 years, and I wish somebody just told me this earlier. When you wake up and the first thing that you do is literally just scroll, it really does screw with your mental health. I don't know exactly what it is, but actually, I have a few theories. I've done a lot of research on this shit, and basically, when you fry your brain in the morning with things like scrolling, gaming, junk food, you set up this expectation in your brain for this thing called dopamine, which is like the motivation chemical. You set it up so that it expects this much for the rest of the day. And so when inevitably you come around and say, okay, I want to study, I want to exercise, I want to stop being a fat ass, because those things only give you this much pleasure while motivation's up here, it's basically just, you get almost ratio. There's no way to do the good habits because you feel absolutely depressed and almost suicidal just because you've been basically scrolling and messing with your dopamine the entire morning. And so, the thing I'm going to tell you right here is that when you wake up, you almost want that sort of CEO morning routine sort of energy with your morning. I'm going to explain more of that, but the thing is, when I started just preserving the first 30 to 60 minutes of me waking up, which sounds like a lot, but it really isn't if you do the right things at that time, suddenly, you just feel way more motivated. It's almost like you just hit like the on button. Your motivation just gets like bricked up because now you're not frying it as soon as you wake up. And so, an analogy I like to use here is almost like, imagine the morning of your day is like the first impression that you have with somebody. If somebody, like some new kid walked into your class and he walks in with like curry stains on his white shirt, he hasn't even brushed his teeth, you can see like the little yellow like shit stains on there. There's like genuinely like fleas, you can see him jumping out of his hair and shit. You would immediately think that that kid is a weird kid. You'd think he's a fat fucking loser, and you wouldn't think of him as somebody you want to be friends with. When you start your morning like that, it's almost like you're creating this first impression of the day of it just being lethargic, depressive, unmotivated, because again, your dopamine gets screwed and you stop being motivated. And so here's exactly what you need to do instead during your mornings. And when I started doing this, it almost like just clicked and I started making crazy progress. So just hear me out. When you wake up, what you should do is, instead of just waking up and scrolling, just go over to the bathroom and just do like the normal human hygiene shit. Don't like overthink this. Literally, just wake up, go to the bathroom, and brush your teeth, bro. It sounds super retarded the way I'm saying it, but you just need to realize that when you're not doing these bare minimum things like showering in the morning and brushing your teeth, you're not going to feel motivated. You're not going to feel good about yourself the afternoon and think, yeah, bro, I want to exercise. I want to study. No, you're going to look at yourself as a fat fuck and you're not going to make any progress. So you need to actually just lock in on this first specific habit, which is make your morning almost like the CEO jacked black dude going on. You don't need to do like the crazy shit they do, like going on a marathon and whatever, but just do the self-care. First 30 minutes, 60 minutes, keep it sacred, and you preserve your motivation for the rest of the day. So that's the first habit. The second one that I'm going to show you, and this is also for your morning. In fact, all three of these habits are just for your morning, because when you lock into your morning, you create that launch pad, that domino gets pushed over that lets the rest of the day actually be productive, and you don't just fry your brain for the entire day. So second habit right here is something that you're not going to expect in a fat loss video, which is I started making my bed. If you look here, I'm not BSing you. My bed is actually being made. I am not like one of those steroid freaking Instagram like influencers showing you top 5 health supplements of the day, and it's just like them injecting tren into their veins. Anyways, when you make your bed in the morning, and it sounds really retarded, you're not gonna want to do it. You're probably already having resistance, but just hear me out. When you make your bed in the morning, it's almost like loading into a new video game, and you have those starter quests. Imagine that you loaded to like a new world in Minecraft. The first quest is never just, okay, go kill the dragon and win, right? The first quest is always, okay, go get a little bit of wood. Okay, make your first tools. Now defeat the level 1 boss. Now, okay, get a little bit of iron armor. You see how when you start any good video game, they don't just immediately tell you, okay, go kill the level 500 boss. They stack up a bunch of these small wins, these small quests for you to do, and they reward you each time you do them. So whenever you'll, for example, defeat the level 1 skeleton, they give you the victory sound, they give you that little bit of XP, and you're like, oh shit, this is fun. And then you get hooked for the next 4 hours, and you get yelled at. Well, when you make your bed, it's almost like you're doing the exact same thing. You're starting your day with that starter quest that you don't even need to think about. Like when I tell you to make your bed, you could literally turn your brain off like a retard and just do it. It only takes 30 seconds. Just flatten out like the blanket or whatever, right? But as soon as you do it, your parents might walk by and see, oh, you just made your bed. Good job, beta. You actually did it. I'm proud of you. And then that sounds really retarded, but then again, you create this small, like almost snowball of wins that lets the rest of the day genuinely feel more motivated. You don't feel like this fat little retard on Genshin Impact. You don't feel like doing that the entire day. When you see you've made your bed, you'll be like, oh shoot, let me do another good habit, and another one, and another one. And suddenly, over the course of the next few months, such a small habit like making your bed could genuinely mean you quit all of your addictions. And I say this from brutal experience, because you might think that, okay, fat loss is just, okay, I gotta eat less, move more, eat less junk food, whatever. The problem is that advice doesn't actually help you, because the thing about being the fat kid is that it's almost like there's a bunch of reminders around you reinforcing this identity. I'm gonna get a little bit deep with this, but I remember when I was this fat little Genshin Impact player, my environment was almost like the typical addicted freaking gamer, right? I have like random clothing on the floor. I have like a completely messed up bed with like nut stains on it. Not really, but there's probably some gamers you know that do that. And there was like crumbs all over the floor. There was just like shit everywhere. And it's like, that really does mess with your motivation. And you might not understand this because you've never actually gotten that experience. But when you do these small habits, you'll finally feel this burst of motivation to do the good habits, which is why I'm so I'm so passionate about this, because this small habit genuinely transformed my life. And so making your bed is genuinely the most overpowered habit you could be doing. And so let me just give you a quick protocol now, because you actually want to take action on this video. When you wake up, you go and do the hygiene stuff like I told you. And then when you get back into the room, it's almost like you don't even need to think about it. Just quickly go over and make the bed. It takes a couple of seconds. And then you'll suddenly just feel so much more primed towards doing the good habits. You won't feel like binging for the next 8 hours. And so that is the second major habit that I started doing that will genuinely, absolutely transform your fat loss journey. Now, the third and final habit, and this is the most overpowered one out of any of them I'm going to talk to you, is meditation. And immediately as I said that word meditation, your brain just turned off. You're like, what the hell? Meditation? Isn't that like spiritual and gay and like third eyes and shit? But it's actually not. And if you just give me a few minutes to explain, I'm going to show you how this habit genuinely made fat loss go from this hard chore, this like full-time job that I struggled with, to something that's genuinely effortless now. So let me tell you a story to illustrate my point. I remember maybe this was around the end of COVID, maybe the end of 2022. So all the lockdowns are being lifted, and so of course my parents bring over some family friends, and I remember we're all chilling in the living room. So the dads are like, of course, talking about how much money they make and shit, the new job they got. The moms are gossiping about the grades their children are getting. Oh my god, my son just got into Harvard at the age of 13. All this bullshit, right? And then all of a sudden, my mom brings over this tray of samosas, and if you're a brown kid, you know what they are. There's basically these like fried foods with like potatoes and stuff, and they're freaking like top 10 foods of all time. So she brings them over, and I was about to make a very inappropriate joke. Anyways, the food gets brought over. My mom brings it. There's like 12 samosas for everybody. And as I'm looking at those samosas, there's like this fight that starts happening within me. This war, this struggle that's within me of like, you can imagine like there's the angel on one shoulder, the devil on the other, where it's like, okay, I know that food's gonna be bad for me. It's oily, it's fried, it's gonna make me fatter. I'm not gonna eat it. But then it's almost like there's this voice in my head that's like, yes, you should eat it. It's gonna taste so good. And after a few minutes of just looking at it and genuinely feeling almost constricted, I finally lose that war and I go over for the first samosa. As I'm eating it, the first becomes the second one, the second becomes the third one, and all of a sudden, even though I'm genuinely like trying to like pull my hand away from it, I genuinely feel pissed off at myself. I go through 7 samosas. For context, there was like 12 of them, and there's like 10 guests too. And so everybody's looking at me while I'm eating these samosas. I can see like the moms that are like almost smiling at me like that fat little kid in the corner eating the samosas. And finally my dad ends up shouting at me to get out and to stop eating all the samosas. And as I'm walking over to the bathroom, I genuinely have like tears in my eyes as I realize I just screwed up all of the progress I was making in the last week. And so I go over to the sink, and of course I end up throwing up all the food. I am 10 years old, and I'm genuinely eating like I have an eating disorder. Like, I genuinely feel like I have mental health issues at this point. Like, I'm puppeteered. Like, I'm a slave to these desires, to things like junk food and scrolling. And this was honestly the worst feeling I've ever had, and I will never forget it. But the reason I'm telling you this story is because the reason that you're probably struggling so much right now, the reason you're fat, you're unsatisfied with why you look like the way you are, is because you haven't leveled up that skill of being able to resist your desires. Because literally, if you just level up the one skill of resisting desires like junk food, and you stop being a slave to these impulses you have randomly to go and binge eat all of a sudden, you will lose fat. That's as simple as it is. The thing is, you've never been told by your teachers how to actually fucking do this. And that's why you have all these fat health teachers telling you, oh yeah, eat less, move more, don't eat junk food. But then they don't actually help you do the thing. And that's why it pisses me it pisses me off so much to see these like exercise scientists on like telling me, oh yeah, you should eat this food. But nobody tells you how to actually do it. And the way you do this is actually through leveling up the skill of resisting your desires. So why did I go through that rant? Because meditation is the single best way to train yourself to stop being a slave to your desires. Imagine if I put a piece of junk food, like this chocolate bar in front of you. There'd be like that fat kid version of yourself, like, oh yeah, junk food, like that part of you, right? But then there's the second part of you that's like, okay, I know that junk food is bad. I'm not going to eat it because I want to get abs. I want to genuinely lose this fat. When you meditate, it's almost like you're able to zoom out, like in third person in a video game, and just force yourself to take the right decision that your voice is telling you to do. Instead of being this fat kid who's like stressing out about the little junk food and be like, I guess I might have a little bit. It's only one piece, right? You're just like, no, I'm not going to. You're able to just like let that voice that's actually good for you control your decisions. And this is why meditation is so overpowered, because it just lets you practice that, gain XP in this part, like skill, almost like in a video game. And suddenly you're honestly just more disciplined with your diet than 90% of people. It's that easy. Meditate and fat loss becomes easy. Now, how do you meditate? I'll give you the exact 5-second caveman brain dead analysis. So the way you meditate, very simply, sit down and close your eyes. And hopefully you can do this in a room with not a lot of noise so that you can also focus. Because what you're supposed to do in meditation, and this is really important you listen to this, you close your eyes and you start breathing through your nose. And when you're doing this, by the way, nose is just because you're actually supposed to breathe through your nose. There's a reason you evolved this shit. It's so that you breathe through it. And I didn't know that until a few years ago. So you better start doing that now. Anyways, when you breathe through your nose, you're going to feel like that sort of sensation of the breath going in and out. And your job during meditation is to try your best to focus on that sensation. So when you're breathing, you feel that sound, that vibration, whatever, right? As you're focusing on your breath, you're going to suddenly have thoughts. That's just normal. You're going to start drifting off into something else. You're not going to focus on your breath because you're just starting out. And so, of course, when you do this, what happens is that most people get pissed off themselves. They're like, oh, no, I can't meditate. It's too hard. I can't focus. That's the good part. You're supposed to drift off, because when you drift off, the idea is you now refocus. You go through the cycle. You breathe for a few breaths. You have thoughts, and you just refocus. And each time you go through that process of refocusing, it's almost like one bicep curl for your brain. Suddenly, you're able to detach from your thoughts, because now you're like, okay, I'm good at resisting these thoughts. Whenever I drift off, okay. When you meditate and you drift off and you come back to your breath, it's almost like you're training yourself to return from a feeling of impulses and emotions and shit, which is all your thoughts are, back to your actual self. That sounded kind of spiritual. Basically, in brain dead terms, when you do this, let's say I put some junk food in front of you, you're going to have those thoughts, yeah, I'm going to eat it, and you're going to be like, wait a minute. You're going to meditate back to your normal self, and you're going to be like, okay, that's a bad thing, I'm not going to eat it. There. Meditation is just you training your brain to not be its own slave. It's training yourself to stop being a slave to your own thoughts and your impulses and back to logic. And so if you do this every single day, just for a few minutes, you don't need to do it for half an hour, just 5 minutes a day. Even you know what? When I started meditating, I literally just did a minute a day. Because then after you do it a few times, the habit forms, and then all of a sudden you can do 2 minutes and 3 minutes and 5 minutes. And so that's another critical thing. Make sure you only do it a little bit each day, and then you slowly increase it. Now, here's the thing. I've told you the 3 habits now, but you're not going to take any action on this video. You think that you are. You think, oh yeah, I understand all the 3 habits now. But you're going to go start watching some fucking Mr. Beast. You're going to start genuinely just forgetting about everything I just said. And you're going to be a fat fuck forever. Okay. If you actually want to make progress, you need to take action. And the best way to do this is to literally just take a piece of paper and write down those 3 habits, right? So write down, go brush teeth and hygiene, go make bed, and meditate for 30 seconds. Write those 3 habits down on a piece of paper with a pen. And underneath each of those habits, underneath both of those things, you're going to write down each of the habits and then a bunch of boxes underneath each one. And each day, this is the important part, each day you do the habit, just tick it off. And when you do this, I know it sounds kind of like gay and you don't want to do it, but when you tape this piece of paper on your wall, you keep it on your desk, and you see the ticks slowly forming, you're going to feel more progress being made. It's almost like a video game bar being filled up. And then, of course, you start being more motivated to do these things. This is like the best hack for building habits that I learned for this book here called Atomic Habits, which is basically just this idea of tracking the habits that you do. And so, 2 things, right? Make that tracker, track it every single day, And if you do it for just a few weeks, I guarantee fat loss will just become easier. If you want more advice just like this on how to lose fat and stop being the fat kid of the friend group, quit your addictions, become a straight A student like how I've been able to, then I have a few things for you. First of all, go and subscribe, whatever, right? But there's also a Discord link in the description where I basically just have this server where I try and help all the kids just like younger me quit their addictions, lose fat, basically just become an enlightened teen, get ahead of everybody else. And if you want more advice just like this and you felt this video was helpful, go click on that link, join the server. It's probably perfect for you. As always, my name's Atharv. Go do those habits. See you soon, bro.